Thanks very much, Atenasi, for travelling from the Solomons to join this session. I'll just introduce you briefly. Atenasi took over as the CEO of the Solomon Islands Chamber of Commerce at the end of last year. Before that, she worked for quite a few years at the National Parliament of the Solomon Islands, and she's also worked, I believe, for the Australian Aid Programme. So she's got a long track record in corporate world.
Thank you.
So to start off, the relationship between PNG and the Solomons is obviously very close. I was joking with you yesterday that I think that I don't know of any two Pacific nations that get on so well as PNG and the Solomons. They never seem to squabble at all. But how's the Solomon Islands economy going at the moment? You know, my impression is it's doing reasonably well, but maybe not fantastically.
No, you'll be right. But then going back again, I guess, to your first question, observation, why we get along so well. You might notice that there's a lot of the island music that we played, yesterday, today. Solomon Island influence, reggae, and the language coming into that. So yeah, we have good musical, cultural heritage links there. Going back to that one about the economy, it's a bit slow at the moment. We were expecting that too. We've had the national general election earlier this year, Q1, Q2, and then after that, like a whole raft of provincial government elections. So just pausing, business pausing around that time. Expected to pick up in this next half of the year, going on towards next year with major projects coming online. But the preparatory work for them, such as the Tina River hydropower project, squaring away the landowner discussions, the groups involved in that one, by the end of the year. Yeah.
You mentioned the Tina River project. I remember hearing about that 10 years ago, I think, when I was in the Solomons. It's great that it's finally happening. I think it's worth about $200 million, so it's going to inject quite a lot of activity into the economy. What's it going to mean in terms of, actually when it's finished, what's it going to do for the Solomons as a whole?
Yeah, so there's a whole lot of things in there. But it's taken this long because of the fact that 85% of the land in the country is customarily owned. Yeah? So the land tenure system is something to work around. So yeah, the negotiations, getting the landowning tribes who know, before this, they've never had reason to come together as commercial entities. So just getting that one bedded in, excuse me. And I have lost track of the
That's
next
okay.
part of it.
And then the next thing is, when the project's actually completed,
Yes.
what will it achieve?
Yeah. So as a chamber, we've been operating in the country, and we are the peak body representing private sector in the country right now. But on behalf of our 240 plus members, we advocate to government about a whole raft of things. So there was a list put up yesterday by one of our presenters about business enabling concerns. Yeah, I can identify some commonalities there with Solomon Islands. The reliability and the cost of utilities is one, specifically on power. So unfortunately, power is just concentrated in Honiara, supply of electricity. Businesses do look for the opportunity to expand into the province, but right now that's not happening. So getting cheaper and reliable electricity will help the ease of doing business, cost of doing business.
Fantastic. And on the subject of ease of doing business and utilities, of course, PNG is not the only country in the neighbourhood that's looking forward to improved internet access next year. The Solomons is also due to inaugurate an undersea cable. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so we do have the Coral Sea fibre optic cable coming online December this year. I should say here, though, that it's not the only telecommunication development happening in the country. There's also a cable connecting between Port Vila and Honiara that is being progressed too, with satellite technology too. We've had some major developments too in that space. I think there were like 2 Solomon Islands specific satellites commissioned recently, and I think this was some source of envy, I guess, for some of the other Pacific Island countries too, that we have 2 Solomon Island dedicated satellites. So it's all that rather than just about the Coral Sea Cable project. But yes, definitely, it's about improved capability with the fast speed. I think about 1,000 times better improved connectivity. But then there's that whole other side of it about how that gets spread out domestically. So yes, landing it in Honiara, but then how does that get out to the provinces as well? So for government, it's about social impact, social outcomes. For business, it's about, once again, opportunity to expand.
So looking at the, let's say, medium to long term, the combination of the Tina Hydro project and these connectivity projects means that economic activity hopefully will move into the provinces, whereas at the moment, really, the formal economy is almost entirely centred on Honiara, isn't it?
Yes, that is right. But then, it's also been a bit of a chicken and egg thing. We talk about our population, so what, hitting 1 million in about 10 years' time, 2050, I think. Apologies if I'm getting the dates wrong here. But there's that potential. And there's the direct business observation that they're not able to get the workforce that they need. So yeah, the numbers are pretty high, and yeah, you can try and get workers to move over to the formal economy employment side, but then it's about training them. So it's about the technical types of training with the rural training centers that we have now. So better coordination, better government resourcing for those, and making sure that the workforce are better trained.
I'm listening to a lot of your comments here, and I think a lot of the time you could be talking about PNG. There's such similar issues that the two countries face.
Yeah, it's the geology, it's the cultural, historical links. No, I agree. With security too, that was one of the things that was raised yesterday. It's not so much about security and business, security to asset and business properties. It's more about trying to get policing out into the provinces when businesses do expand. Yeah. Right now, though, the topical things are the Bougainville-Solomon Island border talks. The Chamber is very fortunate. We've got 2 formal platforms that we signed with government 2017, so just getting that up and running. The first one was an MOU. You have the key bodies in there like Prime Minister's Office, Finance Ministry, Commerce Ministry, as well as the Development Aid Planning Ministry. So we're at the table trying to get some structure. Just last year we had about 5 meetings, and they've all been about our contractors not getting paid on time when they're accessing work from government, but then trying to bring that up to be more strategic and about how we can be a partner with government in private sector growth. So there's that one, but then another one specifically on security is a partnership that we have with the Royal Solomon Island Police Force. And, we've got key projects that is going to test how this success of this body goes. First is to do with young unemployed youth. Unemployed youth in one of our informal settlements, and the other is to do with traffic management within Honiara for now. But that's led to the setting up of a body that has always been in the Act, Road Transport Act, and that's the Road Transport Board. So the Chamber of Commerce has a seat at that table as well. Yeah, so just trying to bring a more strategic level type discussion, but on business enabling concerns.
Well, let's talk a little bit about investment. The PNG is a major investor, obviously, in the Solomons, and a lot of PNG businesses that are attending this event have a presence in the Solomon Islands. What's going on in terms of investment at the moment? I mean, let's maybe start with the mining sector. I know that there is a mining sector in the Solomons, but there's not too much going on at the moment. What's the outlook for that, maybe in the next 2 to 5 years for the mining sector there?
Yeah, I think that one is more about working, so the Chamber, once again, working with government to get the governance around that sector developed and then embedded. So there is a mineral board working with the other ministries that we've got good relationships with, trying to, bring up the whole discussion about getting your processes and your officers recruited to man and monitor. Yes, we've had some issues, bauxite mining on one of our most remote areas and ship going aground with that one. But it's all about helping that province. For a long while now, they've been very removed from central government, and this is one way to get some cash injected into that area, direct way. So just partnering with government on a long-term view. So that's the one on mining.
All right, and what about the Goldridge project? Because at times that has injected a lot of, foreign exchange into the country, but it, obviously in the last few years it hasn't, its activity's been intermittent. There's periods when it just isn't open. So what's the outlook for that one?
To my understanding, and you'd have to pardon, coming in towards December last year, so it's not Chinese company owned, but they are listed on the Australian Stock Exchange, and I think they're in the process of just raising capital to get that started. So by 2020, Q2 is what I'm hearing.
And in terms of interesting sectors in the Solomons, where do you think there are opportunities for foreign companies to get involved? Not necessarily actually setting up and investing, but even supplying services, whether it's supplying expertise.
Yeah.
What does Solomons need from the international business community?
Yeah. So around July this year, we had the opening of the Munda International Airport, and that's out in the Western Province. So the Western Province now hosts two key ports. One is the international airport, and the other is the Noro port, international port. So there's that development, and then the whole sectors around it in tourism, are in agriculture, and are in forestry plantation. So two of the countries, we've only got two forestry plantation operations going on right now. They're also based in the Western Province. So that's the key things that are happening in terms of infrastructure.
Could I just say, I think Western Province is also the hub for tourism, and that's a sector with potential. I didn't actually make it there. I've been to Honiara quite a few times, but I know some of our team have been to Western Province. In fact, the editor of Paradise magazine travelled to Western Province a year or two ago. I had a great time, but Solomons is still attracting few visitors because it just doesn't have that many hotel rooms in the whole country, does it? So,
it doesn't.
What do you think is the outlook for that sector? I think the Tourism Promotion Board look pretty organised, but they just don't have enough stuff to promote.
No, you're right. It's once again chicken and egg, growing that whole beds and rooms supply, but then really pushing hard too on the promotion that they're doing internationally. But then finding behind that one would be then finding the niche. So what is it? It's I think becoming about the tourism associated with World War II. It's becoming the tourism associated with the diving spots, the bird watching and cultural activities. So those are the key selling points that this tourism body has focused on.
There must be an opportunity for a international standard resort on Western Province. Surely now the infrastructure's there. Or at least it seems to be, with the airport and etc. Is that something that's been talked about?
That is one of the options being talked about. The Solomon Island National Provident Fund has now taken over one of the more exclusive island resorts, and we come up against, of course, that observation that 85% of the land is owned by groups, land-owning groups, not individuals. So while we're trying to instill there is distrust, over the years between landowner and government. So private sector, more specifically the chamber, trying to contribute to that discussion to help break down that distrust and exposing them to business models. So PNG has good lessons with the landowning groups that I'm hearing about. So more opportunity for engagement on that one.
Okay, and of course the leading hotel in the country is PNG owned. And I know one of the shareholders is NASFund, who are one of the sponsors of this event. So I guess that's a great, it's a great example of what P&G can achieve in the country.
Yes. The Heritage Park Hotel is the investment in the country, together with the National Provident Fund too. Yeah, so that's a good example. But we've got the Ella Motors, the Credit Corp. So P&G companies or businesses expanding to Solomon Islands.
Yeah. And just to wrap up, looking ahead, what are your hopes for the next, let's look at 5-10 years for the Solomons? What do you think it can achieve in the next decade?
Well, at the moment, we're also fielding the countries consultations. Yes, so the Millennium Challenge Corporation, that's the U.S. government's entity, is in country scoping out where it can work with government, and they seem to be focusing and coming up with 4 priority areas. One of them is tourism, the other is infrastructure and land and administration. So there's that one, and then there's also that Australian government of Australia infrastructure funding for the Solomon Islands. What does that mean? So $2.5 billion available. But then separately to that, they also have a bilateral funding that government wants to tap into. That's like $250 million Australian. So these are opportunities that we're working with government to try and leverage off, so how they can achieve the biggest social outcomes for them. But for us, it's about business and vibrant private sector, helping businesses grow.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for travelling over, and thank you very much for coming in early, everybody, and listening to this update on the Solomons. Yep. Thanks, Atenasi.
Cheers.